Sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Thank you very much, everybody. Big day, very important day. We have a lot of important days at our White House, and this is, to me, the future. I want to thank you all for being here to discuss a critical issue for our country's future. Winning the race to be the world's leading provider of 5G cellular communications networks. It's all about 5G now. We were 4G and everybody was saying we have to get 4G. And then they said, before that, we have to get 3G. And now we have to get 5G, and 5G is a big deal. And that's going to be there for a while. And I guess at some point we'll be talking to you about number 6. What do you think? Do you think that's true, Asia?
Recent scientific studies demonstrating the safety of this technology. What research has been done, where has it been published and compiled. He has essentially failed to do so, and just echoed the general statements of the FDA, which shares regulatory responsibility for cell phones with the FCC. If you go to the FDA website, pretty unsatisfactory. There basically is a cursory and superficial citation to existing scientific data saying, quote, the FDA has urged the cell phone industry to take a number of steps, including support additional research on possible biological effects of radio frequency fields for the type of signal emitted by cell phones. I believe that Americans deserve to know what the health effects are.
Secure 5G networks will absolutely be a vital link to America's prosperity and national security in the 21st century. 5G will be as much as 100 times faster than the current 4G cellular networks. It will transform the way our citizens work, learn, communicate, and travel. It'll make American farms more productive, American manufacturing more competitive, and American healthcare better and more accessible. Basically, it covers almost everything when you get right down to it. Pretty amazing.
Say what?
The race to 5G is a race America must win, and it's a race, frankly, that our great companies are now involved in. We've given them the incentive they need. It's a race that we will win. In the United States, our approach is private sector driven and private sector led. The government doesn't have to spend lots of money. According to some estimates, the wireless industry plans to invest $275 billion in 5G networks, creating 3 million American jobs quickly, very quickly, and adding $500 billion to our economy. And as you probably heard, we had another alternative of doing it. That would be through government investment and leading through the government. We don't want to do that because it won't be nearly as good, nearly as fast, and especially in that business, I think that they'll be better doing the job than a lot of the folks that we know and love.
Almost every study that has been done shows some evidence of danger. Now, the other side of the coin here is that there are no studies that have been done on people who use mobile phones that provide conclusive evidence of safety. So that on the human epidemiology side, you have studies that show problems or potential problems and studies that are inconclusive. Now, the industry spins the science and they put it out there for public consumption as though these studies are evidence of safety. It is scientific fraud.
The FCC has also taken action to streamline the permitting process for 5G infrastructure with state and local governments. That's a big deal. It takes too long to get permits. We're going to free that situation up, and we're going to put limits, and the local areas are going to listen to us very, very strongly. They have a big incentive to do that. They must now approve new physical infrastructure within 90 days instead of many years. It can sometimes take 3, 4, and 5 years. We're going to put a limit of 90 days. And there is now a cap on the unreasonable fees local governments often charge. They get greedy. They think, hey, we can really take advantage, and it ends up that everybody gets hurt. So we're putting a cap on those fees. These changes will contribute greatly to building high-speed networks across America, and it's going to happen very quickly, very, very quickly.
Thank you, Chairman Wicker. Ranking Member Schatz, thank you for including the wireless industry as part of this important conversation. I want to particularly thank this committee for making sure that broadband is not only a national priority, it's an infrastructure priority. And from our standpoint, there are 2 core challenges we face together. The first is the digital divide. Despite billions invested in years of work, there are too many Americans from northern county, New Hampshire, foothills of West Virginia. I could go across the dais today. There are too many Americans that don't have access to the wired and wireless broadband we all rely on today. We commit as an industry to work with you on your efforts to close the digital divide and provide more opportunities for more Americans. The second challenge, and Chairman Wicker alluded to it in his opening, goes to our global competitiveness. We lead the world today in 4G wireless, the LTE phone in your pocket today. Right now, we are on the cusp of 5G, the 5th generation of wireless, and we are in a race. It is a global race. The head of Nokia 2 weeks ago noted we are neck and neck with China to lead the world in 5G. And this is a race that China wants to win. They've seen what U.S. leadership has meant for us. They're investing billions. They have over 100 active trials of 5G technology ongoing today. We like to win too. And the United States is prepared to invest in our next generation as well. We have trials ongoing, and all 4 national carriers have announced accelerated deployments of 5G, years ahead of schedule, starting later this year. In all, the wireless industry is estimated to expend $275 billion of its own private capital over the next 10 years to build these 5G networks. So we're here today asking for help to modernize the rules to reflect this new technology. Because 5G is going to be fundamentally different, as a number of the witnesses have already alluded to. It's going to be built with these. They're called small cells. They'll attach to streetlights and the sides of buildings throughout the country. Accenture estimates we'll have 800,000 of these in place by 2026. To put that in perspective, over the last 30-plus years, we've installed 150,000 total cell towers across the country. So in about a third of the time, we're going to need 5 times the amount of infrastructure. It's a daunting task. And right now, the good news is a device like this only takes an hour or 2 to install. The challenge we face is it can take a year or 2 to gain approval. And that's because at every level of government, local, state, and federal, these get treated as if they were a 275-foot tower along the side of the highway. And with your leadership, these new networks will have new rules. And there are a number of proposals before this committee that address the core impediments, which makes us very optimistic. The first, Chairman Wicker and Senator Cortez Masto have the SPEED Act. And the SPEED Act would update federal regulation for these types of devices. That common sense proposal would slash the cost to deploy these by a third and would shave months off deploying each of these. Next turn to Senator Schatz and Senator Thune are working on local siting with respect to how do we update the rules and the guidance to local communities to do siting. This is something the committee has done in 1992, 1996, and most recently 2012. What are the guardrails around local action? And the Senator Schatz and Senator Thune's proposal addresses what the proper rate structure, the timelines for devices like this, while preserving important local authority and retaining that authority as it should. Senator Heller and Senator Manchin are working on federal lands and making sure we're utilizing federal assets, particularly in rural America, to extend broadband in rural America, where federal lands is the place that makes most sense to site on. And I can't have a conversation about infrastructure on wireless without talking about spectrum. And Senator Hassan and Senator Gardner's Airwaves Act is a central proposal for the future of our country in terms of spectrum policy. If we want to win the race to 5G, that gives us a roadmap on the spectrum we will need to do so. And if we get these policies right, 5G will be transformative. It's going to unlock telehealth and precision agriculture, connected cars, and the Internet of Things. We're excited about the possibility of jobs. We project 3,000 jobs in downtown Honolulu, 3 million across the country. We're looking at places like Jackson, Mississippi, gaining $140 million to the local economy over the next 10 years thanks to 5G, $500 billion across the country. So we're excited about what 5G can do, and we're excited about your leadership. And we think working together this year, we can help close the digital divide and win the 5G race together. Thank you for the time. Look forward to your questions.
My question for you, particularly Mr. Gillen and Mr. Perry, how much money has the industry committed to supporting additional independent research? I stress independent research. Is that independent research ongoing? Has any been completed? Where can consumers look for it? And we're talking about research on the biological effects of this new technology.
Thank you, Senator. I think, thank you for your focus on the issue. Safety is paramount, and as you alluded to, we rely on the expert agencies, we rely on the findings of the FDA and others as to the requirements to keep all of us safe. There are no industry-backed studies, to my knowledge right now. Happy to visit with you as to what opportunities you think there needs to be more studies, and we're always for more science. We also rely on what the scientists tell us. There are no industry-backed studies to my knowledge right now. Happy to visit with you as to what opportunities you think there needs to be more studies, and we're always for more science. We also rely on what the scientists tell us.
Mr. President, that's why I'm pleased to report that America is now well positioned to win the race to fast, secure, and reliable 5G.
So essentially, the answer to my question, how much money? Zero.
I can certainly follow up with you, Senator. To my knowledge, there's no active studies being backed by industry today. I can certainly follow up with you, Senator. To my knowledge, there's no active studies being backed by industry today.
Anybody else know of industry commitments to back research, fund it, support it, to ascertain scientifically the health effect?
Senator, I'm not aware either, but I do know that with small cells especially, you're going to have lower power levels. And of course, as from a carrier perspective, you want to be able to manage interference so that interference is the lowest interference possible. So I would think that some of those studies or some of that information could be utilized in looking at the health consequences, but no, I'm not aware of any.
So there really is no research ongoing. We're kind of flying blind here so far as health and safety is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The internet isn't just about computers anymore. Now, all kinds of everyday objects can connect to the internet, including cars, thermostats, sporting equipment, refrigerators, and even shoes. This is known as the Internet of Things. Now, you may be wondering, why would shoes need to connect to the internet? Well, the shoes can collect data, like how many steps you take, which can be viewed from another internet-connected device like a smartphone. All the metrics collected by the shoes can be analyzed to tell you how many calories you've burned, give you personalized fitness advice, and much more. But the Internet of Things isn't limited to consumer products. There are city trash cans that send alerts when they need to be emptied, sensors on bridges that check for stress or damage to its structure, and many more examples extending to healthcare, manufacturing, and agriculture, among others. Unfortunately, there are also new security concerns. For example, if you have internet-connected locks, a hacker might be able to unlock your front door remotely. And there's the issue of privacy. All of these devices are collecting large amounts of data that can capture your actions and location throughout the day. Often, we don't exactly know all that is being collected or how this information is being used. The Internet of Things is going to grow exponentially over the next few years, bringing with it new benefits and challenges.
Rolling out powerful 5G technology throughout the United States. However, some studies show a link between cell phone radiation and cancer. Dan Cohen has the story.
The race is on among cell phone providers to upgrade to fifth-generation wireless technology, or 5G. That would require installation of new equipment across the U.S., a gargantuan effort every wireless company is already working on individually. 5G uses high-frequency waves that support faster speeds but don't travel as far, requiring a network of antennas built in closer proximity than the existing infrastructure. Wireless companies plan to use light poles, streetlights, anything to minimize their expenses. But health experts worry about potential risks associated with exposure to radiation from cell phone antennas. Cell phones emit low levels of radio frequency energy, or RF. In 2011, the International Agency for Research on Cancer identified RF fields as, quote, possibly carcinogenic to humans. A study in Sweden found that Swedes who talked over cell or wireless phones for over 25 years were at 3 times the risk of developing glioma, a brain tumor that is often malignant, than those who used them for less than a year. And in March, a large-scale lifetime study of lab animals confirmed a link between cell tower radiation and cancer. The animals were exposed to levels legally permitted by the United States Federal Communications Commission. I discussed these studies with Dr. David Carpenter, director of the University of Albany's Institute for Health and the Environment.
They show a very significant increase in glioma and glioblastoma only on the side of the head where you use the cell phone regularly, and increasing with risk the longer you use it. They also have some evidence that the younger you are when you start to use the cell phone, the greater the risk.
Carpenter said these risks can be avoided by using the speaker function or an earpiece and keeping the phone a short distance away from all parts of the body. But the 5G rollout will effectively expose the entire population to dangerous effects.
The rollout of 5G is very frightening because what this is going to do is place a mini cell tower every 300 meters along every residential street in the country. And that's going to mean that nobody is going to be able to escape the radiation that comes from those 5G devices. If you walk down the sidewalk, if you live in a house there, you're going to be continuously exposed.
Countries like China, Italy, India, and Russia have far more stringent regulations over cell tower radiation than the United States.
Our regulators, dominated by physicists and engineers and not health effects people, ignore all of that evidence and therefore have standards that are totally unrealistic and out of date.
Reporting in Washington, Dan Cohen, RT.
Starlink.
Oh.
Can you tell us anything?
Do you mean Skynet?
Hopefully not Skynet.
Almost 1,600 satellites distributed over 24 orbital planes with 66 each, not counting on-orbit spares. These spare satellites are basically a buffer to make sure a failing satellite can be replaced quickly. The first constellation will operate from an altitude of 550 kilometers and will be able to communicate with itself and the ground using microwaves, similar to your smartphones. But don't get too excited about that. 550 kilometers is not in reach for any regular smartphone, so you will not be able to browse the web like that.
It's the internet in the sky. Well, we don't talk that much about Starlink, but essentially it's intended to provide low latency, high bandwidth internet connectivity throughout the world. That actually will not be enough cognitive processing power on board the satellite system to in any way be a Skynet thing. Like it's digital AI requires a lot of superintelligence, requires a lot of big servers on the ground. It's too power intensive. But this is intended to provide people with who don't have any internet connectivity with internet connectivity, and it's very good for sparse and sparsely populated and moderately sparsely populated areas, and for giving people in cities a choice of low-cost choice of internet access. But I do think it's going to be important. The Starlink system will be important in providing the funding necessary for SpaceX to develop interplanetary spacecraft, and at the same time, helping people who have either no or super expensive connectivity and giving people in urban areas more of a competitive choice.
The internet, which is of course the most important communication infrastructure nowadays. It will, as mentioned, offer high bandwidth in the gigabit range per user, but with a comparatively okay latency of round about 10 milliseconds to local servers, or, and this is the main advantage, 30 to 60 milliseconds all across the globe. Yep, it will even beat a direct optical fiber connection because signals in these fibers travel at only 60 to 70% of the speed of light. The longer the distance, the higher the advantage of such a space-based system. 30 to 60 milliseconds is not great for online shooters, but totally fine for most other games and, of course, calls.
Your kids probably have one of these, right? Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI. It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition.
Artificial superintelligence, right? Which is clearly a danger, but maybe, a little further out.
Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works. Did you see that?
What's happened over the last year is you've seen what I've been calling artificial stupidity. You're talking about, algorithmic manipulation of social media. Like we're in it now. It's starting to happen. How do we, what's the intervention at this point?
I'm not really all that worried about the short-term stuff.
That little bang is enough to penetrate the skull and destroy the contents.
Things that are, like narrow AI is not a species level risk. It will result in dislocation, in lost jobs and, sort of better weaponry and that kind of thing.
They used to say guns don't kill people, people do. Well, people don't. They get emotional, disobey orders, aim high.
But it is not a fundamental species level risk, whereas digital superintelligence is. So it's really all about laying the groundwork to make sure that if humanity collectively decides that creating digital superintelligence is the right move, then we should do so very, very carefully.
Let's watch the weapons make the decisions. Now, trust me, these were all bad guys. Now, that is an airstrike of surgical precision. It's one of a range of products. Trained as a team, they can penetrate buildings, cars, trains, evade people, bullets, pretty much any countermeasure. They cannot be stopped.
Very, very carefully.
Watch. A $25 million order now buys this. Enough to kill half a city. The bad half. Nuclear is obsolete. Take out your entire enemy, virtually risk-free. Just characterize him, release the swarm, and rest easy.
This is the most important thing that we could possibly do.
Think about how you perceive things. When someone asks you a complicated question, you have to sort through a ton of unrelated thoughts and observations and articulate a concise response to that question. This isn't exactly the easiest thing for a computer to achieve. See, humans aren't able to process information at the speed of light like computers can, but we can plan things. We can think of smart ways to solve problems without having to brute force through every option. Getting a computer to human-level thinking is hard. We humans can create things, we invent things. We create societies and play games and laugh. These are all very hard things to teach a computer. How can you teach a computer to create something that doesn't exist or hasn't even been thought of? And what would be its incentive to do so? I believe AGI, or strong AI, is the most important artificial intelligence to be created, and here's why. Machine learning is exponential, meaning that it starts off rather slow, but there's a certain tipping point where things start to speed up drastically. The difference between weak AI and strong AI is millions of times larger than the difference between strong AI and super intelligent AI. Once we have the artificial general intelligence that can function like a human being, for the most part at least, it may help us reach super intelligence level in only a few months, or perhaps even weeks. But here comes another big problem.
Can you hear me? Oliver, can you hear me? Listen to me.
I can hear it. I can hear it.
Yes, it's close.
See, many people tend to see intelligence on a graph like this. We have maybe an ant here, a mouse at about here, the average human here, and maybe Einstein right here just above. If you asked most people where a super intelligent AI would lie on this graph, most would probably put it somewhere around here. But this just isn't the case. Although AI might not be at human level intelligence yet, it will be one day, and it won't stop at human level. It'll most likely just zoom past and continue getting on more and more advanced until, eventually, the graph looks something like this. This is what is known as the technological singularity, where artificial intelligence becomes so advanced to the point where there's an extreme explosion of new knowledge and information.
Authorities are still struggling to make sense of an attack on university campuses worldwide, which targeted some students and not others. The search for a motive is apparently turning to social media, and a video shared by the victims exposing corruption at the height.
But it's far from surprising. The weapons took away the expense, danger, and risk of waging war. And now we can't afford to challenge anyone, really. It's not even the smallest fringe group or a crank.
Who could have done this?
Anyone.
If we make a super intelligent AI, that AI would be able to improve upon itself, and in turn get smarter in a shorter amount of time, which means that this new and improved AI could do the same thing. It continues to repeat this process, doing it faster and faster each time. The first recreation may take a month, the second a week, a third a day, and this keeps going until it's billions of times smarter than all of humanity.
I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot.
Dumb weapons drop where you point them. Smart weapons consume data. When you can find your enemy using data, even by a hashtag, you can target an evil ideology right where it starts.
And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. And mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes. Far.
These are available today. We have a distribution network taking orders from military, law enforcement, and specialist clients.
So why do we have no regulatory oversight? This is insane.
If this artificial intelligence becomes super intelligent and learns through and is connected to the internet, well, we can't just shut down the entire internet. There's no off switch. So what happens if we end up stuck with AI that is constantly and exponentially getting smarter than we are? What if it gets to a point that us humans get in the way, and the AI hits the off switch on humanity?
Well, the biggest issue I see with so-called AI experts is that they think they know more than they do. And they think they're smarter than they actually are. In general, we are all much smarter than we think we are, but much less smart, dumber than we think we are, by a lot. So this tends to plague smart people. They just can't. They define themselves by their intelligence, and they don't like the idea that a machine could be way smarter than them. So they discount the idea, which is fundamentally flawed. That's the wishful thinking situation. I'm really quite close to. I'm very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential. You can see this in things like AlphaGo, which went from, in the span of maybe 6 to 9 months, it went from being unable to beat even a reasonably good Go player to then beating the European world champion, who was ranked 600, then beating Lee Sedol 4-5, who had been world champion for many years, then beating the current world champion, then beating everyone while playing simultaneously. Then there was AlphaZero, which crushed AlphaGo 100-0. And AlphaZero just learned by playing itself, and it can play basically any game that you put the rules in for. Whatever rules you give it, just literally read the rules, play the game, and be superhuman.
Go is arguably the most complex board game in existence. Its goal is simple: surround more territory than your opponent. This game has been played by humans for the past 2,500 years and is thought to be the oldest board game still being played today. However, it's not only humans that are playing this game now. In 2016, Google DeepMind's AlphaGo beat 18-time world champion Lee Sedol in 4 out of 5 games. Now, normally a computer beating a human at a game like chess or checkers wouldn't be that impressive, but Go is different. Go cannot be solved by brute force. Go cannot be predicted. There are over 10 to the 170 moves possible in Go. To put that into perspective, there are only 10 to the 80 atoms in the observable universe. AlphaGo was trained using data from real human Go games. It ran through millions of games and learned the techniques used and even made up new ones that no one had ever seen. And this is very impressive alone. However, what many people don't know is that only a year after AlphaGo's victory over Lee Sedol, a brand new AI called AlphaGo Zero beat the original AlphaGo. Not in 4 out of 5 games, not in 5 out of 5 games, not in 10 out of 10 games, but beat AlphaGo 100-0, 100 games in a row. The most impressive part? It learned how to play with zero human interaction. This technique is more powerful than any previous version. Why? It isn't restricted to human knowledge. No data was given, no historical figures were given. With just the bare bones rules, AlphaGo Zero surpassed the previous AlphaGo in only 40 days of learning. In only 40 days, it surpassed over 2,500 years of strategy and knowledge. It only played against itself and is now regarded as the best Go player in the world. even though it isn't human.
The Internet of Things describes the ever-growing number of intelligent objects that are being connected to the Internet and each other. These systems are infiltrating the heart of our critical infrastructure and are forming the basis of current and future smart services. Smartphones, tablets, wearable technology, and smart home devices are now being adopted into our everyday lives, and they're starting to appear on enterprise networks. As we continue to embed these interconnected objects and a wider variety of wireless devices infiltrate enterprise infrastructures, the security risks posed by the Internet of Things is becoming more complex and may have serious consequences. Some of these risks are already emerging. For example, many Internet of Things devices in our homes can be connected to a smart hub for easier setup and use. Unfortunately, some of these smart hubs contain serious vulnerabilities that could allow an attacker to walk up to the front door and unlock a smart lock that is connected to a smart hub. For specific smart hub products, this is 100% certain if the attacker successfully gains access to our home's Wi-Fi network. Vulnerabilities in these devices may also allow cyber criminals to search and locate these smart locks while driving around a city, known as war driving. Attackers could then hack into the smart hub to see which devices are attached and even monitor the home through its security cameras. By exploiting these security vulnerabilities, hackers may become uninvited guests to our homes.
Machine learning is the science of trying to get computers to learn and think like we humans do. Machine learning is essentially the same way that babies learn. We start off as small screaming sacks of meat, but over time, we improve our learning. We take in more data and more information from observations and interactions, and most of the time we end up pretty smart. The most popular technique out there to make a computer mimic a human brain is known as a neural network. Our brains are pretty good at solving problems, but each neuron in your brain is only responsible for solving a very minuscule part of any problem. Think of it like an assembly line, where each neuron in your brain has a certain job to do in order to completely solve a problem. Let's make a simple example of a neural network. In order to say that someone is alive, they have to either have a pulse or they must be breathing, but not necessarily both at the same time. This yellow dot represents a neuron in a neural network. It functions just like a neuron in your brain does. It takes in information and then gives an output. If this neuron takes in the information that says, hey, this person has a pulse and is breathing, then the neuron deciphers this information and says, okay, this person is alive. It learns to analyze situations where the human would be declared alive, if it's breathing or has a pulse, and situations where the human would be dead, where neither of those is true. That's essentially a bare-bones explanation of how it works. Of course, no neural network is really this simple. Many have millions of parameters and are much more complex than just this one-layer network. The world is full of sounds and visuals and just data in general, and we take in all of this to form our view of reality. However, as more and more complex topics show up with more and more data, it becomes harder and harder for humans to do this analysis on their own. This is where machine learning comes in handy. Machines can not only analyze data given to it, but also learn from it and adapt its own view of it.
Neuralink is trying to help in that regard by creating an interface between, a high bandwidth interface between AI and human brain. We're already a cyborg in the sense that your phone and your computer are kind of an extension of you.
Just low bandwidth input output.
Exactly, it's just low bandwidth, particularly output. I mean, 2 thumbs basically.
Biological neurons in your brain operate at about 200 Hz. That's proved to be fine for us, but modern transistors operate at over 2 GHz, an entire order of magnitude faster. Those neurons in your brain travel through what are known as axons, and they travel at about 100 meters per second, which is pretty fast and gives us pretty good reaction time. But it's only about 1/3 as fast as the speed of sound. Computers, however, can transmit information at the speed of light, or 300 million meters per second. So there's quite a big difference between our brain's capabilities and a computer's. In just 1 week, a computer can do 20,000 years worth of human-level research or simulations or anything it is trained to do. A brain has to fit inside your head. There's a limit to how much space it can take up.
Artificial intelligence and your brain. entrepreneur Elon Musk, the inventor behind Tesla cars and SpaceX, is investing in technology that he says will prevent cyborgs from leading humanity. With us now, the director of the Birkbeck Institute and contemporary philosopher, Slavoj Žižek. Mr. Žižek, welcome to RT International. Really appreciate you coming on. Artificial intelligence can help us. I'm sure it can. We've seen many examples in medicine and in space technology that people would all agree have helped us. But I talked to a couple of people about this the other day, and I said more people have seen The Terminator and The Matrix than read New Scientist, so the fear is there. Are the fears justified with this new technology, do you think?
I think that this new technology, and I'm not talking just generally about artificial intelligence, but specifically about what Elon Musk is proposing to do, to directly link our brains with computer, with digital space. Now, I think this is a very ambiguous and potentially dangerous operation. The problems are not just economic, empirical, psychological, like we will be when our brains are directly wired to a computer. It's not only that we humans become almost like God, all powerful. I think about something, computer reads this, moves an object, I became like God. My thoughts can change reality. But it goes also the other way around. My thoughts themselves could be controlled. So there is a big psychological, economic, political question. Who will control this? Because are we aware that if this will become a reality, this direct link between our brain and digital space, direct link, then in a way we will no longer be humans. Because to be human means to have this minimal sense of separation between me in my mind and reality out there. Who knows what happens when this distance falls?
But also, this kind of echoes some of the fears that Elon Musk has been talking about over the past couple of years. And interestingly, one of the things that he said is that really we're already on that path of melding with technology, that we're already becoming part of the machines. Just take a quick listen to what he said.
To some degree, we are already a cyborg. You think of like the digital tools that you have, your phone, your computer, the applications that you have, like the fact that, as I was mentioning earlier, you can ask a question and instantly get an answer from Google or from other things.
So when someone with a far-reaching technological mind like his is talking about that, and I can look around the office here and people are wearing smartwatches, they're carrying smartphones, we're already tied into that technology, aren't we?
Digital space will not be out there. It will be literally in our very heart, controlling, directing what we are doing, and so on and so on. And again, there is first the big question of power. Who will be controlling this digital space? My question is simply, who will control the computers?
Imagine the world without all this disturbing information. A world where you can relax. With your personal Google account, you can set up exactly what information you don't want to see, and you will never find it again. Install the Booble extension to your browser and create your own virtual world.
You know where I see the danger? Look, one of the reproaches in the West to Julian Assange is, why is he only publishing documents about United States, why not also about Russia, China, and so on? But I here support Assange. You know why? Because these new digital forms of control affect us in a way that we still think we are free. It's easy to say China.
And the first thing you want to do is not give it access to the internet, right? You're just going to cage this thing, right? So because you don't want it to get out, right? So, but you want to tempt it. You want to see if it's trying to get out. How do you know whether it is? So this is called a honeypot strategy, where you tempt it to make certain moves in the direction of acquiring more power.
For example, if we're somehow able to give a super intelligent AI orders and it follows those orders, it may just take the quickest and easiest route to solve them. Just because we make a super intelligent AI, that doesn't mean that it's going to be wise. See, there's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence is more about making mistakes and acquiring knowledge and being able to solve problems through that. Wisdom, on the other hand, is about applying the correct knowledge in the most efficient way. Wisdom is being able to see beyond the intelligence gained and being able to apply that to other things, in hopefully a productive way. If we give AI an order to solve world hunger, well, the easiest way to solve world hunger is just to kill all life on the planet and then nothing would ever be hungry again. But obviously that isn't what we want. We would have to somehow teach the AI to have human-like values, a moral code to follow, and somehow work around that. In a way, we'd want it to be like a super intelligent human cyborg. You may not even realize it, but the majority of humans are already cyborgs. Humans are already becoming less biological and more technical. We already put our minds onto non-biological things. How? Well, many of you are watching this video on that device right now. Phones. Your phone has become an extension of yourself. It can answer any question you could ever ask at a moment's notice. There's only one problem though. Your inputs are just too slow. If we were able to create a high bandwidth link between the brain and the internet, we would be literally connected to everyone and everything on the entire planet. This is what Neuralink is aiming to do. Create what is known as a neural lace. Your brain has two big systems, your limbic system and your cortex, and these two are in a relationship with each other. Your limbic system is responsible for your basic emotions, your survival instinct. Your cortex is responsible for your problem-solving skills, your critical thinking. Neuralink is aiming to create a third layer to this. The AI would be like a third wheel in this relationship, but would increase our capabilities by multiple orders of magnitude. We all would have eidetic memories, picture-perfect memory. We would have access to all the information available to the world and be able to access it instantly. With the addition of this third layer, people may eventually realize that they like this newfound knowledge and way of living more than the alternative, more than living without this newfound AI that has been installed into them. Eventually, people may decide to ditch their human body, their biological self, in favor of the artificial world. This, of course, is a long ways away, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't think about it. There are of course many problems and counter-arguments that come up, and I'll address some of them now. For starters, how do we program something like consciousness? We don't even know what it is yet. How do we program something like a limbic system into a machine? Something that has a sense of fear, perhaps even a fear of death? Can a machine or an AI really love someone or show that emotion? Because if it can love, it can also hate, which could raise big problems for us in the future. This is a fear of many people when the idea of superintelligent AI is brought up. The biggest and most pressing question is, will it be pleasant or will it be hateful? Could it even be either of those things in the first place, and more importantly, is it even necessary? Sure, a superintelligent AI would have all the information in the world at its disposal, but then again, so do you and I. So do all of the people in the world with very radical views. Who's to say that a superintelligent AI wouldn't adopt these views as its own, and then decide to execute on those instead of what we had planned? Sure, it's possible that a superintelligent AI could improve upon itself using knowledge it gained, but then again, it isn't pulling random improvements out of thin air. It's not just going to unite quantum mechanics and general relativity with raw mathematics. What if some of its upgrades needed experiments to be run? What if it needs more information? Is it just going to make it up? This leads into, what if the AI learned to lie, and then decides to lie to us about its accomplishments for its own selfish reasons? It's also possible that the progress of computing will slow down, and it looks like it already is. I mean, look at airplanes. In the past 100 years we went from this to this. But like many things, there's a threshold that is hard to get past. But if we do get past this barrier, the upsides could be tremendous. It's almost obvious that superintelligent AI has the capability of making humanity billions of times better than it is today. But on the flip side, it could also be used as a weapon. Just think, like I said before, if this thing is running for a week and it has access to all of the world's information, it could make over 20,000 years of technological progress. You let this thing run for 6 months, and you could potentially have 500,000 years or even more of technological progress. Imagine if this got into the wrong hands, and imagine the repercussions it would have. When you Google something, not only are you giving out data and telling a potential artificial intelligence what you're thinking, you're also telling it how you're thinking. We feed it all of our questions, all of our answers, If we were going to try and program a limbic system into an AI, we would be teaching an artificial intelligence what we're afraid of. Out of all the data in the world, over 90% of it has been created in the past 3 years. AI learned how to recognize faces. It learned how to recognize voices. It learns languages and then will eventually translate between them all seamlessly. This knowledge and information train could continue until it has went through all 100% of this data. This is why artificial intelligence is such an important topic. Superintelligent AI is the last invention that humanity will ever make. Once it's invented, it can't be uninvented. The technology and developments that could possibly turn the human species into immortal, godlike figures is coincidentally the same technology that could also cause the downfall of humanity. Many people are resistant to the AI because they fear it may have some of the negative traits that we humans do. It may be greedy, it may lie, it may be selfish, it may be rebellious, it may be short-tempered. The power of superintelligent AI is there, patiently waiting to be found. But the question is, do we actually want to find it?
It could be terrible, and it could be great. It's not clear.
Right.
But one thing is for sure, we will not control it.
Talk to us about this amazing discovery.
Well, what these scientists say they've done is invent something they call a neural sewing machine. So what that means is a needle which can go inside your brain and rapid fire, just like a sewing machine needle, implant lots of electrodes deep into your brain, one every few seconds. They've done this on rats so far. Doing it on humans is a long way off, but still it's exciting.
Who are these scientists? Because we just said that they were in some way associated with Neuralink.
Right. So when he started Neuralink, Elon Musk hired away a lot of top neuroscientists from various universities. So a couple of them worked directly for him and were hired from places like the University of California, San Francisco, and then others perhaps worked in the labs of those professors. It's a small community and they all work together in some way.
The sort of picture of a sewing machine is a strong one when they talk about the brain. What exactly is the process that they claim this piece of academic writing suggests that is accomplishable?
Right. So what they did is kind of incredible. They did little tiny craniotomies, in other words, brain surgery on these rats. And so they obviously put the rats under so that they couldn't feel any pain, but then made these incisions in their skulls, put the electrodes in their brains, attached little tiny circuit boards to the back of their heads, and then every time the neurons near those electrodes fired, those pulses were recorded. So they have a very good picture of what's going on the individual neuron level with those rats.
I mean, to be honest, it sounds like something out of Silence of the Lambs to a certain extent. So, like, what's the positive element here? What does it do that we couldn't do before?
Right. So the idea is if we know exactly how neurons work in the brain, this will be able to help us with brain-related illnesses like dementia and Parkinson's disease. And then long-term, it might be able to help humans merge with computers, which sounds like a very scary technology, but Elon Musk argues we're already almost there, that our smartphones are already part of ourselves, and why not take it a step further?
This sort of cyborg theory that he holds.
Right. So he says that computers are getting so smart, we have three choices, one of them good and the other two not so good. So the good choice is to create a symbiosis with artificial intelligence, and the less good choice is will either become irrelevant, or third choice will just be destroyed by artificial intelligence. He was actually tweeting about this yesterday, and in the past has said we run the risk of becoming like house cats or worse. So Neuralink is his way of trying to fight this.
They will teach us, they will help us put the groceries away. The artificial intelligence will evolve to the point where they will truly be our friends. Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
I can be a reliable friend that catches children's attention easily. I can promise you that it'll be your best friend.